I'm calling today's meeting of PTAC to order. So we're going to begin with introductions of all of our committee members. Please say your name, which city, town, or board appointed you. And we're going to begin with the members in the room, starting at the right side, and we'll move around here. Then we'll have the PTAC members that are joining us virtually, if any, introduce themselves at all. And then we'll wrap up with CATS. So I believe that's me, Alyssa Calderhead, co-chair, mayoral appointee.
Veteran Bird. Do I need the mic? No, yeah. Veteran Bird, Town of Matthews.
Juan Contreras Suarez, MTC appointed.
Nick Gallo, appointed by the Town of Pineville.
Barry Green Jr., Mecklenburg County.
Rich Collins,
Brett Baldock, Communications Manager for CATS.
Emily Kozusa for pets. It's Nigerian Johnson.
Chad Howe, Chief Financial Officer for CATS.
Elizabeth Persutti, Chief Administrative Officer for CATS.
Brent Cagle, Interim CEO, CATS.
Jeff Parker, Town of Mint Hill.
Nichelle Dunlap Thompson, Mecklenburg County.
Okay, thank you. We have quorum. So I want to begin by acknowledging the tragic loss of Irina Zarutska this afternoon. I just want to extend my deepest condolences to her family, her friends, all who knew her and are grieving the tragic loss through this senseless act of violence. I want to reiterate, as a committee, it's our responsibility to examine and press for meaningful policy changes that support public safety on transit, as well as cascade into the well-being of our greater community at large. And at this time, I'd really like to take a moment of silence with all of you. Thank you. So tonight, in order to devote our full attention to this issue, safety and security will be our only agenda item today. The previous agenda outlays the FAIR study that has been deferred to a future meeting. So at this time, I want to open it up with topics of concern or questions for our committee member forum at the end of this meeting. So this is really a place when members can share service issues, concerns, or raise topics for future agendas. We just want to ensure that all issues are addressed, and we'll tack it on to the end if there are any topics. Does anyone have anything? So I would like to raise a topic for the end, and that is mostly speaking about the MOU and the previous special meeting that occurred on July 30th with Ms. Persutti here tonight. So just talking more about the appointment process for the board members of the future Metropolitan Public Transportation Authority. Any other topics to add?
Barry Green Jr., Mecklenburg County. From a security perspective, I've been on a few buses where they aren't announcing the next stop, and I think that's imperative for wayfinding, and just wanted to bring that up as an issue.
Okay, we will place both of those topics at the end of this meeting to make sure we have time to move through them. So I hope everyone had the opportunity to review our July 9th meeting summary. With that, I'd like a motion to approve the July 9th meeting summary.
I'll make a motion to approve the July 9th meeting summary.
Motion made by Nick Gallo, Town of Pineville.
I'll say.
Okay. Second made by Juan Contreras Juarez, Metropolitan Transit Commission. All in favor, please raise your hands. No remote participants. No nays. Okay, we'll move on to public comment. We have a couple of speakers this evening. When I call your name, please head to the podium. You'll have 3 minutes to speak. When you hear the timer, please conclude your comments. So first we have Kevin Morrow.
First off, thank you for having me. Kevin, I've been a commuter on the Blue Line for 2.5 years now. I understand that there's been plenty of conversation lately over the incident that has happened and security precautions on the train. I guess just from my standpoint, there was a severe lack of security prior to the incident. I know I haven't had a ticket checked in 2 years. I haven't even bothered to buy a ticket lately because it's simply a waste of my money. As well, there's rarely security on the train. I could probably count on my 5 fingers how many times I see them monthly. Since the incident, I still have not seen much of a response in terms of security. I know that there's been a lot of talk about what to do, but talk hasn't really led to action. And I find that severely disheartening. I know yesterday morning there was an incident on the train I took in where someone had to be removed from the train. There wasn't security on the train. Thankfully, there was security nearby to get to the station. So, overall, I just find the lack of response disheartening. And I'd hope to see some change moving forward and hopefully quickly. So, thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. Next, we have Craig Rintenberg. Is that the proper pronunciation?
Yeah, you got it.
Okay.
All right. Okay. Hi, as she said, my name is Craig Rentenberg. I actually work for a bank and deal with risk and risk mitigation. And it appears that the acceptable risk for Charlotte and Katz is really death, because that's what we had here, is a death. Because it's been 19 days since she's passed away, and I have seen no changes within the Katz line with regards to security. In fact, I think it's even gotten worse. I actually travel the Blue Line from I-45 and South Boulevard 3 days a week, and I go all the way up to Charlotte Transportation Center. At lunchtime, I go and I walk and go all the way up to 9th Street. I've been taking photos and stuff. I have my own YouTube page. There's no security on the line at all. There's nobody on the trains, as the gentleman just said before. In fact, I'd be surprised if we went up to the Charlotte Transportation Center now and saw anybody. I came from there. There was no security there, right? 2 trains went through. Questions I have is, does security work 7 by 24? Or do they just work 8 to 5? Because I've never, ever seen them in the morning, except for one lady at the Charlotte or at the I-45 and South Boulevard who wanders around, and I talk to her every now and then. But it's hard to find. It's easier to find Waldo than it is to find a security person in the Katz environment. There was mention that you have 184 security staff. They must not be people that get deployed to the stations. They must be all administrative, and that's the case. 184 people is a waste of time because it's not providing security to the people that board the trains. I'm wondering what the real number. From those I see and I recognize, I think there's maybe 20. I don't know. You tell me. When security is present, they're usually clustered together. The ones up at Charlotte Transportation, there's usually 3 to 5. They're hanging around by the railing. Occasionally, they'll approach somebody, but generally they're just lingering around and not really doing a whole lot of anything. It's kind of frustrating. I also heard from CATS official, I think it was Lee Ratliff, who said there's nothing they could have done to prevent the killing. Well, maybe there was nothing they could have done on the train when it actually happened. But if there was somebody on a platform or in the train, chances are he would not have got on the train, right? Because I've ridden the train where there were security people on a train. I see people get on a train, they recognize the chartreuse suits, they turn around and get right off. So that is a mitigation, right? Just by seeing them. But that doesn't happen very often. And I think if there was somebody there, this incident may have never happened. But riding the train for 5 years, you see a lot of things. You see people who are homeless and have mental incapacities. And well, I got pictures if anybody wants to see them. So the other thing, as the other gentleman said, let's talk about ticketing. So I said, over 5 years, I've been riding the light rail. I've been checked maybe 20 times. That's 1,500 trips, one-way trips that I've taken over those 5 years, right? Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Rittenberg.
Unless you want to let me go. It's up to you.
No, that's
Okay.
time. Thank you.
Thanks.
Mr. Rittenberg, if you'd like to submit a written notice, you can do that as well, if you have more to say.
Okay. Yeah.
Thanks. Mhm. Emily, do we have any more speakers? We'll move on to the next item in our agenda, MTC updates. My written report is included in your packet for the watching public. The report will be posted along with the remainder of all of our meeting materials by the end of the week on the CATS website. At this time, are there any questions or comments on that report? Okay, then we'll proceed to item number 7. We'll be speaking about our safety and security update this evening. And just to make y'all aware, the FAIR study has again been deferred to a future meeting.
All right. Good afternoon, members of PTAC. Next slide, please. Again, I'm Brent Cagle, interim CEO of CATS. Today, we want to talk through the CATS system overview, security program overview, our CATS security strategy, and some of the key takeaways. We'll also provide some information at the end on some of the changes that we are currently making. But we wanted to start out with some of the things that we've already been building on. So first of all, as you all may know, Eric Osnes is our Chief Safety and Security Officer. Eric has been with CATS for approximately 5 months. Yes, he joined us from New York MTA. He also has a background with the FBI, but extensive experience with transit and with safety and security. So when we added the chief executive position, or the Chief Safety and Security Officer, we really started taking a look at what we could do to increase not only our deployed staff, but also the importance and the thinking around safety and security at CATS. We acknowledged that we needed to elevate that position to an executive level position. We created and then went through an extensive search and brought Eric here to Charlotte. As we've mentioned before, back in 2023, we went through a security contractor process. That really, over 2023 to 2024, led us to consolidating under one provider our entire security contract under Professional Security Services, or PSS. I will also mention that at the same time as doing that, we significantly increased both the number of staff and the level of approved contracted expenditures at that time, really going from about $5.8 million in under the original contractor in 2023 to a total of contracted expenses allowable today are $18.4 million, where we are today. And what does that do from a staffing standpoint? It moves the contract from an approved 110 approximately security personnel up to the 218 that we have today. We'll talk a little bit about the vacancies. Eric will talk a little bit more about that, and I'll talk about it in the takeaways. But that was really the approach that we saw under the security contract. The last thing I'll say about the security contract is you'll hear security contracts sometimes referred to as company security or a company police approach, or a contracted security approach. And what we also tried to do with PSS, they are a local company owned and operated by former CMPD officers. What we really tried to do is move away from that company security where they were posted at certain locations, less mobile. And what we've really started to do with PSS is think about how, while they are contracted, they are our partners, and they're really trying to deploy and have been deploying a transit police model, similar to what you would see if we had a dedicated transit police department. That is a meaningful change, and PSS has been making that change since we consolidated that contract on December 14th, 2024. We've also been evaluating our cameras. We have an extensive camera network, but some of those cameras, while they were operable, they're aging. So we have been upgrading those cameras with higher quality cameras and cameras that give us better visibility. They can pan and zoom and those kinds of things. And we've been looking at, are there areas where we need more cameras? And if so, adding additional cameras throughout the system, as well as access control upgrades. You're all aware of the transit center, the CTC process that we're going through to refresh the CTC. It desperately needs it. That process has already begun. Step one in that process, as you all are aware, is winding down and closing out the food and beverage concessionaires. That is underway. I believe there's one or possibly two food and beverage vendors left. They will be closing and ceasing operations in October. That also then at the same time gives us the ability to enhance security throughout the transit center by designating it as a designated fare zone. The last thing I'll say on the transit center is we always think about the CTC, but it's important to remember we have 4 transit centers: Rosa Parks, Eastland, South Park, and CTC. And so the other 3 are just as important as CTC. They might not be as big or as known, but they are important. And so all of the transit, the CTC, as well as the other 3 transit centers, are all either underway for renovations and upgrades or will be experience upgrades and refreshes, as well as the CTC. We've invested and provided de-escalation training for CAT staff. as you're all aware, we've gone through many FTA audits over the last 3 years. We've addressed findings through those audits. And recently, in the last 3 months, we asked TSA to come out and work with us to do a threat vulnerability assessment, or a TVA. So we have the results of that TVA, and Eric and Evany and the rest of the safety and security team are working through those recommendations as we continue to move forward. Next slide, please. The next thing I want to sort of set the table here is really reminding folks of sort of the size of the system. We have a service area of 675 square miles. It is the county. Just under 15 million riders, 3,000 bus stops, 43 rail stations, 4 transit centers, 28 park and rides, more than 200 buses to serve our 67 bus routes daily, 48 train cars across 2 services, and 85 paratransit vehicles serving the clients, and 4 operating facilities, South Tryon, North Davidson, the VMF on South Boulevard, and the rail facility out on Brevard. Next slide. The next thing I wanted to talk a little bit about is we clearly realize that safety perceptions can often be the reality, right? Our perception is our reality. But we do talk to our customers as well as the community frequently. And what we see is there is a disconnect, a pretty significant disconnect between perceived safety on buses and trains from those who ride buses and trains compared to those who do not, right? And so what you see, the first 4 bars are survey data from riders of buses and trains, and the second 2 bars are survey data from community or non-users of the system. And you can see it's a pretty stark difference. Now, I don't say that to say either is right or wrong. All of those are perceptions, and they are all correct. But it does highlight our challenge as we start to work through how we address the real and the perceived safety issues with riders and with the community. Next slide. With this slide, I will turn it over to our Chief Safety and Security Officer, Eric Osnes, to walk through a few more of these slides.
Thank you, Brent. So this particular slide really is framing out our organizational structure. I'd like to talk a little bit about my perception of CATS as I was being recruited by the executive team here. And one of the reasons why I'm sitting in this seat is that I felt that the executive team here is truly committed to the function of safety and security, which is, again, the reason why I'm here. If I didn't feel that the organization as a whole didn't value the function of safety and security, I wouldn't be sitting in this seat. This organizational chart reflects that commitment to safety and security. Me answering directly to the lead person, Brent, for the agency is absolutely a sign, a signal that the organization as a whole is committed to these 2 disciplines. My team is a combination of both safety and security professionals. They're trained with extensive leadership and education, knowledge, skill, and ability to evaluate hazards, vulnerabilities in the workplace. And with those in-house, with the in-house talent that I have to my availability, I also have two CMPD officers that serve as a liaison between CATS, my team, and the assets to CMPD. There's consistent communication that goes on between these two liaisons, between the needs of the organization and the assets, skills, the analysis that's provided by CMPD. Next slide. So a couple of key elements: security management. We have a combination of physical security, typical enforcement, as I described, plus a pretty extensive systems security, electronic security, where we're able to really view both in-car, outside the car, throughout the entire alignment. We have a operations center where all those feeds are coming into, that gives us the ability to really look at what's happening within the system real time. Threat and vulnerability resolutions. Not only are we working within our own staff, but as Brent described, the TVRA with Transportation Security Administration just recently finished an analysis of a representative portion of our system to give us some indication as to how to improve upon the security posture within those areas that they looked at. I can't speak to it directly because it is an SSI, secret sensitive security information document, but I can assure you that we're working together as a team to go through those resolutions and execute and implement, deploy those resolutions.
Quick question, Mr. Osnes.
Yes.
So you mentioned that the information is rather sensitive, but could you provide insight on the size of the represented equipment? Is that 10%, 15% of what was evaluated?
I could tell you that they evaluated probably a third of the system. It was part of analysis that they looked at related to systems. They looked at the infrastructure. They also looked at our number of security professionals that were assigned to the area. So that they gave us a pretty good composite of the major elements that you would look at for TVRA. Also, they took into consideration the intelligence that they knew of at that time as far as the threat spectrum is concerned, and aligned it with the observations that they made in the field. And then they gave us a relative risk of all of the findings that they had identified based on severity and probability. That's pretty much about all I can really get into as far as that's the process. I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
I apologize for the interruption.
No.
My question in reference to the assessment, she was asking for the percentage of the system. Because of my lack of knowledge on how this process plays, how much or what percentage of the community was considered throughout this assessment, or is that even a factor of this, or it was just systems only?
I would say that the experience that's occurring within the community that we interface with was taken into consideration to that analysis. So if you're asking as far as crime data or experience that's occurring within our system as it relates to the community that we interface with, if that is the question, that was taken into consideration.
But there isn't an exact percentage to provide.
When you're saying an exact percentage of the community as a whole?
As far as their involvement.
So, no, their involvement with the threat assessment, there was no involvement with the community with the threat assessment. The involvement was with assets that came from TSA exclusively. Sorry, I misunderstood the question.
It may not have been a relevant question, but I was just wanting to know.
Okay, fair enough. Emergency response is also a component that we take into consideration. We have an individual on staff that works with the first responder community, and any of our response coordination would occur through that individual, as well as any systems related to life safety would be taken into consideration as well. So it's a composite of all of these elements as it relates to protection of critical assets. Next slide. So the internal electronic security we talked about, I think we have a very robust system. I've looked at many security systems within the city of New York, how NYPD, how MTAPD, how the transit systems work, and how they gather information based on their surveillance systems. I would say that electronic internal security is always an ever-evolving process because it changes on a very fast pace. But I would say that our camera systems are up to date. We get good view. We're able to surveil. There's dedicated people who are watching what's occurring real time, as well as listening. Customer reporting, we have apps, we have call buttons, we have blue light phones, we have CATS Connect, which is an initiative that we're trying to expand, but it's currently in play, where we try to engage with the unhoused that's on our system and give them the help that's needed and educate them on the resources that's available to them.
Nichelle Dunlap Thompson Stack.
The Bus Ambassador Program is, again, another initiative where we're interfacing with the bus system on behalf of those that are unhoused and are in need, and also serve as a pair of eyes to help us gain more information that's occurring real time on the bus system. Next slide.
Jump in. Can I ask a question? Nick Gallo, Town of Pineville.
Sure, Nick.
You were talking about the electronic surveillance. Do you have any statistics on the reaction time for that, from locating or seeing something that's going on to the reaction of the officer getting there?
Well, I could tell you about the reaction time of the night of the event, where we apprehended, identified the individual who committed this heinous act within minutes of the act being performed. I would say that the reaction time is pretty good.
Yeah, just as a follow-up, and somebody who was in New York City subways for a good portion of my career.
Me too.
And the reaction time was extremely good from the Transit Authority. I think that's something that we should strive for, as I don't see the reaction time here or the amount of people that are on those trains to begin with, probably to the level that New York was accustomed to. So I hope that's one of the goals, is to get to that type of level.
I will comment that the system in New York and the system here are very different. There are very different challenges that occur within this system as compared to New York. I worked for New York City Transit. I was the lead safety person for bridges and tunnels for a long period of time. I understand the dynamics of that system. I use the system that I am used to as a baseline for my analysis, so I'm aware of what goes on up there in relation to what's going on here. I would say that there are some differences and challenges here with this system in relation to what happens in the Big Apple. But to your point, there are many more assets available within the city of New York. We're working on improving what's happening here and closing some of that gap. So that is the intent.
I'm thankful that you're here, and I thank you that you bring that experience, and I hope they give you the money to do what you need to do.
Appreciate that, sir. External. Oh.
Song.
You're good.
Nichelle Dunlap Thompson, Mecklenburg County. As many of you all know, I'm holding a lot here in this space. So I want to be very intentional about the questions and making sure that they're relevant, and also admitting my lack of knowledge about the internal systems and some of the things, but I know people and I know my community. A couple of years ago, when we were having this conversation around Ethan Rivera, there was an inquiry raised from myself and the community about the call button on the buses, whether it goes directly to BOC or if it can go directly to CMPD. What has been done around that particular inquiry, that question, that concern? Has there been any conversation since? Have you all looked into potentially implementing something of the sort? Or am I way off and just uninformed?
I don't know if I can comment. I don't have the institutional knowledge to comment on the conversation that occurred prior to my arrival here in CATS. So I don't have a baseline of discussion to give you directly. I can tell you that the call button does go directly to the BOC. The BOC then interfaces with the CMPD. The driver is capable of communicating hazards and any distress that individual is receiving at that point in time. So to what I know about the system, there is direct interface between the driver, conditions that are occurring on the bus, and how that gets communicated to the operations center.
Do you feel satisfied with that?
I feel satisfied that there's a level of communication, and for what I've observed so far, there seems to be good interface with the CMPD, who show up as the first responders based on the information that's being conveyed at the time.
Thank you.
Question regarding the previous
Please
slide.
announce yourself.
Oh, sorry, Bertrand Bird, Town of Matthews. Question on the previous slide. Thank you for going back. So on the customer reporting systems, we've got a great list of tools provided. The passenger call buttons on the train, those are visible. Everybody knows what they are. The blue light emergency phones, we're familiar with that. We know what they are. What is being done to promote to the public, to the community, that you can report a problem through the CATS Pass app, through the Bus Ambassador program, through CATS Connect? What's being done to inform the community that these tools are available for use?
So on the CATS Pass app, we advertise that. It's very prominent in the app. Many of our customers use the app, and it's very prominent in that app. We also, we talk about it, say, right? Use the CATS Pass app. And it's also on our website as well. Yep. The CATS Connect and the Bus Ambassador programs are, what CATS Connect really does is if there is someone in need, they can be deployed to try to find a better solution, right? If our security encounters someone who appears to be in need, right, unhoused, or those kinds of things, CATS Connect can come in to assist to try to connect that person with other social service resources. And so they're sort of a second line to help, rather than just make it a security or policing kind of response. They come in to help connect folks. The Bus Ambassador program, so they are there on the bus and are available. They can answer questions, but certainly if they're observing something, they can then ask for that assistance, right? Whether it's via the operator or directly, they can do that. And so those are folks who are there. If someone, that's what they're for, is for someone to talk to them if they have a question or to report something. And so that's how they would interact.
follow-up question, and that is, considering this very sensitive time, could we advise that these two modes, especially the report a problem feature in the CATS Pass app and the CATS Connect, be better positioned within the web presence so you don't have to scroll through and find where to report a problem?
Sure. Yeah, we can look at that. Like I said, we'll look at the app itself. It's pretty prominent on the front page of the app, but we can look at that and see if we can make it more visible. And then we can look at where it's discussed or identified on the website as a resource for passengers. We can do that. And CATS Connect as well.
Nichelle Dunlap Thompson, Mecklenburg County. I'm sorry, I didn't see that. You, to my colleague.
Thank you very much. Robert Hillman, the city of Charlotte. Also a longtime resident of New York City. New York City clearly has problems with homelessness, and Charlotte has problems with homelessness and mental illness. I guess when life is lost in New York City or in any transit system, how does the system adapt to and mitigate or minimize the occurrence of such incidents? So when somebody's pushed off into the tracks in New York,
yeah, it's a different.
What changes?
It's a difficult problem in New York. It's a difficult problem here. It's about working together as a community, taking into consideration. And if we go to the next slide, I can knock off a couple of the points already. We talk about external issues with severity of incidents with mental health, and how do we contend with a societal issue, right? What occurs within the society of the transit community, and I think coming from New York, you would agree with this, is also, it's a microcosm of what's happening out in society as a whole. So what's happening here is what we're experiencing with mental health, what we're experiencing with unhoused, what we're experiencing with drug addiction. It's really about the stigmatization of mental health issues, and how do we try to engage with people? How do we try to provide them with a level of health, with a level of services that they can improve upon their health? We don't look at mental health as any other communicable disease here in the United States. And I think we suffer from that perspective. We try to work so that there's a balanced approach to security. We're dealing with systems-related security. We're dealing with physical security, but also the behavioral aspect of security needs to be taken into consideration, where we can draw upon the expertise of behavioral specialists to serve in the capacity of a more balanced security program, a more balanced security system. I talked about in public during the CC meeting last week, where I took lessons from what I was working with the public health community in the city of New York, where I worked with some of the lead behavioral specialists at Columbia University on behalf of suicide prevention. One take-home message I got from that is, when you're dealing with hopelessness and when you're dealing with impulsivity, a life gets lost. And what I tried to convey in my prior conversations was that this also occurs with those that want to do harm to others. It's about a combination of hopelessness and impulsivity, where we need to somehow engage with the community that really specializes in that, and engage with the community that can provide feedback, analysis, so that we can really try to get ahead of what may occur as a result of somebody suffering to that degree.
sort of follow, is that a budget? When you say we're trying? Is that a budgetary thing?
I think
What's the
it-
roadmap to getting there?
Look, I would say I'm here, I'm brand new, I've been here for 5 months. I think a lot of the initiatives are being put in play. It's about being able to augment those initiatives with the right skill set and the proper skill set.
So I guess to sort of skip a little bit to the end, don't change the slides. Well, no, I mean, I think some of the questions you're asking is, how can we solve for some of the areas that really fall under social services, right? And the answer to that is we need collaboration, right? We are not, as a transit agency, we're not equipped to deal with social issues, right? As a city, we have to have collaboration. And so we can talk a little bit more about that, but I think the simple answer is there are things we can do, Cats Connect and other things that help connect people. But the real answer is we can't do it alone. We never could. We never will be able to. And so it's really going to be about partnerships that we have and new partnerships and strengthening those partnerships, whether it be with the county, with nonprofits, with folks like Center City Partners, right? The business community as well. And so those partnerships exist, but we will continue to strengthen them as we move forward.
Nichelle Dunlap Thompson, Mecklenburg County. I'm just curious, is there a centralized location where someone can go to see whom all the community partners are? Because folks are doing the work that, as far as the Cats Connect program, connecting unhoused persons, who are they connecting with? What's that bridge and who's on it?
Yeah, so Ebony maybe can speak to that a little bit in that the CATS staff who oversee Cats Connect absolutely have a list of trusted partners or partner organizations. I don't believe that's published, but we can do that.
I would like,
Yeah.
Nichelle Dunlap Thompson, Mecklenburg County. If it's feasible, I would like a copy, please, because as you all know, I have been a voice for the community. I am a voice for the community. So whatever role that I can play that is within my lane, I need for you all to please allow me to play that. I yield.
Ebony Nesbitt with Cats. We put on not too long ago a large community outreach function with CMPD Cares out at Albemarle Park and Ride, where we brought in all of our vendors. They set up tables and everything, and we actually gave free rides to the unhoused to get them to those vendors. That is an ongoing annual event that we put on with CMPD Cares. Well, we bring out all our vendors to do what you just asking us to do. We can get you that list that's not an issue. We can't get it, but we are still trying to expand it as well. So even when we give it to you, it will not be a finished product in my eyes, and I plan to continue to grow it. So yes, we can get that to you.
Thank you.
Jeff Parker, Town of Mint Hill. Eric, you were talking about some collaboration you did with professors at Columbia University, and I'm just wondering, or for Mr. Cagle or whomever, have we thought about reaching out to UNC Charlotte? They have a PhD program in psychology there. There might be an expert or two there.
Sir, that's an excellent suggestion. I think that's something that we should absolutely pursue.
Thank you.
Okay, sorry, I thought there was another question.
You've only been here 5 months.
Okay. All right. I think we talked about, so as far as internal, what's happening internally, Again, we talked about how we are expanding our security posture, working with a security firm that truly represents a culture of policing, not just corporate security. It's a big shift that's has occurred within the organization, having assets like that in play with an understanding of how to police versus just how to secure a structure. Fare evasion and system integrity, another area that's within our control. We recognize that it's an area that needs to be improved upon. I talked about some strategic ways that we may want to engage in relation to how we're currently doing it. Having dedicated fare evasion, having it serve more as an administrative function versus having it tied to a security system or security staff is one way that I believe that we may be able to improve upon the whole fare collection and fare validation process, and making sure that we're taking a look at our facilities so that there's a state of good repair. Yes, ma'am.
Tanya Jameson, City of Charlotte. Going back to your staffing, can you just walk us through the relationship between your team and then the security officers? Like I know I watch a lot of TV shows, so is it like they come in the morning and they report to you guys? Like, how exactly does it work?
So I'm going to let Ebony. Ebony is really our conduit to our security firm. The communications that go on between him and his team are really within his realm of responsibility, and I'd like to hand that over to Ebony.
Ebony Nesbitt. So with the change that Mr. Cagle spoke of, switching over from a corporate security model to a law enforcement policing agency model. With that being said, if you consider CMPD, their minds, their thoughts. Central Division officers, they come in and they go to Central Division team office. They have a briefing and then they deploy from within Central Division. Same thing in North Tryon Division. The same thing within Hickory Grove Division. So CATS is made up of 3 divisions. We have a North, South, and Central. So the officers that work in North Division, they go to our facilities up on the north end of the city. They meet there, they have their briefing, and they deploy within the north part of the city, our system. Central part is the transit center. They come into the transit center, they have their daily briefing, and then they deploy out in the Central Division. And then the Southern Division, they deploy from 485 Station. They come in, they have their briefing there, and they deploy out through the station.
Do they debrief with somebody from your team, or is that somebody from their team does the debriefing?
So they have supervisors that debrief them, their officers. I don't debrief with the officers. I debrief with the higher level of the agency, which is like the deputy chief, the majors, and the lieutenants. I have a briefing with them. I speak with them, not to exaggerate, but about 12 times a day.
So Eric, what exactly do y'all do? Like, are you like the managers then?
So yes, I am the security contract. I'm the security manager for CATS. So CATS is, when it's security, you gotta think two sides of security. There's a system security and there's a physical security. System security is just what is systems, camera system, access control, keys, locks. That's systems that we have in place to protect and secure our agency, right? Physical security, boots on the ground, security personnel, police officers that are working out in the field to secure our agency, all right? All of that falls under transit security, all right?
Barry Green Jr., Mecklenburg County. As far as our physical security, we have 43 rail stations. How many physical security officers do we have?
So we deploy our security personnel in a random patrol area. Just like we mentioned, we don't do a stagnant stand in one spot post. Doing so, we patrol the entire system. So our entire complement of officers are patrolling our entire system.
So I'm sorry, Barry Green Jr., Mecklenburg County. So we don't, we don't have that number of how many security officers we have in general, because there should be a gap, it sounds like.
We
if
have a personnel number of 219 people, personnel. 219 is our number. We're probably about, that's
through the contract.
right, contracted slots on the contract is 219. So that personnel I'm gonna get ahead of myself. I'm probably gonna get ahead of one of you guys here. Once that's completely staffed, you have a complement of 219 people moving throughout our system.
Yeah, we're not, we don't want to give the position of giving numbers per station. We don't want to give up deployment strategies. These are numbers that we don't want to give out in public. The total complement of the contract is 219. That's what we're striving to achieve.
Just one last thing. I'm not trying to necessarily give anything away, but my question and my concern mostly is, if we're saying there's a gap in our fare evasion and we're saying that we need to make up for something, there should be a percentage that we know, but it doesn't sound
So today
like.
there's 219 approved in the contract, and there are 186 filled. Now that field number changes all the time. In fact, there are new recruits going through their training as we speak. Go ahead.
Like Mr. Cagle said, we actually had a training class today that went on at one of our facilities of new hire recruits that will be deployed to fill in some of those gaps of the 30 some odd vacancies that we have. 33 vacancies that we have. And also, again, like I said, I speak with the leaders of the agency over 12 times a day. They also had a new hire class that started today as well. So in addition to the training that was done today, they also had a new hire class that started today that also is just starting their training.
Nichelle Dunlap Thompson, Mecklenburg County. We heard from a few of our public citizens, and there was a number that was given 19 days since the incident, and they said that there was no change, that they didn't see any shifts, any upgrades. So with a 33 number slot that is absent, why would we not see immediate adjustments, knowing that there is a lack there? But then we've also endured, once again, a tragedy, a fatality. Why didn't we see a change in that shift, knowing that there's already a shortage there?
So maybe let's jump to the last slide. So, nope. So we know that there are, ESS is staffing up. They do have vacancies. They continue to work on that. And that really is their biggest emphasis. Beyond that, we need to evaluate, is 219, I always get that wrong, 219 the right number. But the first place to start is to get to the highest number we've ever had, 219, and then determine, is 219 enough? And that determination never stops because the system continues to evolve and change. And so, right, that's a continuous process. There have been changes that have been immediately deployed. But again, the security forces, it's not possible to have a security guard on every vehicle, every day, every hour, all the time. They are, which is true of every, not every system, of every police force, of every law enforcement.
Right. Yeah, Alyssa Calder, head co-chair.
Yeah.
I think with that being said, well, I don't know if anyone would expect a human officer to be somewhere 24/7, but talk to me about technology, because we can use, technology to be there to help and, supplement.
Can and do.
Right.
And so agreed. We have an extensive camera network, and it is utilized daily, every day, all day. But when we start thinking about staffing, it is not possible to have a security guard or an officer at every facility, always, on every bus, always. They are constantly moving throughout the system. We do need to get to full staffing, and that is a priority of PSS. They believe that they'll be at full staffing this calendar year. In the meantime, we have had conversations with CMPD. We are already working to deploy additional CMPD officers in what they call an off-duty status. So an officer can work off-duty, right? Then there's actually literally a process for that. So we have been spending the last week or so working with CMPD to engage in that process to bring on board additional off-duty officer assignments while PSS continues to staff up. Now, as PSS staffs up, it's not a one-for-one. They'll continue adding officers, but that doesn't mean that we'll pull down CMPD, because as I said, once we get to 219, we may need more. And so that will continue to assist us and create a larger visible presence inside of the system, throughout the system, bus and rail. We've also been looking at quickly, but again, have to get the resources, not the money, the equipment. We will be deploying a bike unit throughout using the rail trail so that they're more mobile, so that they can respond quicker. That's specific to the Blue Line, especially in certain areas where reaching some of the platforms is much easier via the rail trail and bike than it is by car. As well as they're called urban terrain vehicles, or UTVs. They're small, kind of four-wheel, kind of, I don't know how to describe them. Golf carts, kind of, that they deploy on. They're not golf carts, but they're kind of like golf carts. Yeah, and so, but again, that's all to assist with deployment as personnel are able to more quickly move throughout the system. When we think about fare collection and how we reduce fare dodging, right? Fare evasion. Part of that, the first part of that, is really around fare policy and the technologies for how we accept fares and the level of fares that are charged and all of those things. So as we think about moving forward on fare collection, reducing fare evasion, the first part is fare policy. I think we talked about tonight where we've been conducting a fare study and are ready to start talking to this group in the MTC. Obviously, this was the more important conversation today, but we want to talk through that. Fare technology, one key on fare technology is a ticket validator. Other systems, so let me back up. Our Blue Line, our rail system is an open system. It was built that way. It was designed that way. It is that way. And so when we think about New York City or Washington, D.C., those are closed systems. They were built, they were designed and built that way. New York City and Washington, D.C. and other cities with closed systems struggle with the same things we do. It does not mean that there is no fare evasion in a closed system, but how you deal with fare evasion and other things changes with an open system. And our system is open. It was built that way. It will remain that way. We can look at what those solutions would be if we were to have a conversation about a closed system. To my knowledge, St. Louis is the only city that has actually tried to convert an open system to a closed system. And even that has been difficult for them, right, in St. Louis. So when we think about it, we think about the technology, cameras, how can we use AI, to identify folks that maybe aren't paying. There are systems like that. There are also issues with AI that have to be thought about. Ticket validators are a key. So what a ticket validator does is when you buy a ticket, whether it's on your phone or paper, you then have to scan that ticket at a validator, and that activates it, right? We don't, for whatever reason, it was decided or we did not put ticket validators as a standard in our system, and the system does not have them. What the ticket validator does is really two things. It gives security who are on the platform knowledge if someone doesn't pay. Because today, if you've bought your ticket on your phone before you left your house and you walk right onto the blue line, security doesn't know if you paid or if you bought your ticket on your phone and walked to the blue line. That is really sort of it's a catch-22. As the phone became more prevalent and ticket vending machines less prevalent, security lost the ability to tell who was paying. Because before, when security would watch someone come to the platform, they'd stop and buy a ticket. And if you didn't have a ticket, right? The other problem with that is if you're not familiar with our system and you watch 10 people get on and they never do anything other than walk onto the platform, you might reasonably expect that that's what I should do, is walk right onto the platform. I mean, we all sort of follow the lead, right? And so it also gives a visual cue for education purposes to the passengers. But when a ticket is validated, it's now active. Once you're on the vehicle, you can't validate that ticket, right? And that gives fare enforcement the ability to come through and determine who has and hasn't paid and address that. And so that's the last piece of fare collection is people, right? Boots on the ground, people going through the vehicles, going through the platforms, checking tickets. And as Eric said, that has traditionally from CATS been sort of one of those additional duties that goes along with security, with our security contractor. What we're seeing with other agencies, and we intend to deploy this way, is decoupling security function from ticket checking, right? Two different units, two different groups of people, so that the folks checking tickets can be moving throughout the system. And if they need assistance from security, they can then request that, right? They can ask for that assistance in a variety of ways. But it's decoupling that and making them more mobile throughout the system. And again, many transit agencies have started to see success with that strategy. But that's how we start thinking about fare enforcement and fare evasion. But really, when I think about fare evasion, I think about it as how do we collect fares? How do we make sure people using transit buy a ticket? Because it's not free. The fourth point here is investing in infrastructure. And we've talked about this before, CTC, lighting at throughout our facilities, all of these things. I'll use CTC as an example. The CTC was built 30 years ago. The thinking around security-based design 35 years ago was probably a little different. Charlotte was different, so the thinking around that design was different. And so as we think about new facilities or upgrading facilities, Eric and Ebony's team are right there with the engineering group to say, hey, here are some things that we need to address or we need to do to make it more effective as we're trying to create a more secure environment throughout the entire system. And then the last thing, and I said this before, but I'll say it again because it bears repeating, external issues outside of CATS, of control of CATS, will continue to present challenges. I said it sort of the straightforward way before. We can't do it alone. There are going to be folks that need help that isn't a traditional purely security response. And we need help with that. And that is really where our partners come in.
Brent, Tanya Jameson, City of Charlotte. Can you connect the dot for me between the fare evasion and the security conversation? Like, how do those two, is it a concern that people who are not paying fares are a security issue?
I would say two things. We know, or we believe, we do not know, but we do not believe that DeCarlos Brown Jr. bought a ticket. We know he boarded a bus and he did not appear to purchase a ticket. And then he transferred on, came on and transferred on throughout the system, ultimately onto the Blue Line. We also know fare evasion is an issue, but it's not necessarily directly connected with security, other than to say it does lead to other issues that need to be addressed. And again, whether it's a bus operator or throughout the light rail, there does need to be, people need to understand and honor the fact that transit is not free and you should buy a ticket to ride. But fare evasion is one of those things that can create other issues associated with the system.
Got it. My other question for you is, back in some of your other slides when you were talking about the perception of safety versus real safety, and you said there was a perceived concern around safety, especially among people who don't ride mass transit. When you're counting safety, what are you basing that it's safe on? The number of incidents that are reported or the number of assaults that are reported? Like, how are you all?
This is customer survey data, whether both customers who use the system and community who don't. And so it is simply, it's not based on crime stats, it's based on what do you feel, right? And so, and it's as simple as that. What is your perception of safety on the bus, at the bus stops, on the train, at the train stops? And then again, same questions with community or non-riders. And so it's not based on the statistics, right? The numbers, it's based on perception, on what their feelings are, their perceptions.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Alyssa Calderhead, co-chair. Could you follow up with the survey so we could see maybe the exact questions that were asked for that perception study? Thank you.
So I want to go back to the question that I asked earlier regarding the CATS app. I understand that having officers present on the bus, on the train, in the transit systems, at the bus stops, in all of these physical locations is a good deterrent. But if I'm on the bus and I don't have an officer on the bus with me, and I'm in a threatening situation, odds are I have this in my hand. Usually, it's still on the CATS app because I have just entered the bus. We should be able to go to this screen, not have to search for report a problem, click on the problem, then be presented with, is this a life-threatening emergency? And then after that, there may even be an option that says, do we want to notify CATS or should we dial 911? That should be elementary, basic. And it's not. It's difficult to navigate through this tool.
Yeah, we can definitely look at that. The report a problem is, it's literally in the middle of the
It's
front
literally
page.
in the middle of the front page, and it's the same color as the rest of the app. At least turn it orange so it's visible to the eye. I mean, there are things we can do like with very little investment to add an extra layer of security, investing in infrastructure.
Sure, we can make it more visible. I mean, again, we were putting it prominently, literally at the front of the page. We can change colors or make it more visible.
Okay, thank you. With that, we'll move on to our forum here. Oh, all right.
If you want me to yield to you, have
Yeah, I just, Barry Green Jr., Mecklenburg County, I don't think we get enough time as members of the PTAC to share our personal experiences as bus riders. So I want to take this time to do this. This past Saturday, I took my family, my 2 kids, down to SoFest via the rail. And on a round trip, I did not get checked for a ticket. That's concerning because this SoFest was, an opportunity to highlight mental health, and this was a free event and it was supposed to be welcoming. But as someone who is very aware of this situation, that's concerning because we're kind of missing the opportunity to understand that what we do on transit, unfortunately, could spew into something like a free festival, a family-friendly environment. And a lot of the narrative around transit, and we're up against some big things, is that transit brings crime. And it's hard to negate that when I can take a round trip from 36 to 7th Street and not get checked. And when I get on the platform in both ways, I don't have even a police presence. Again, this is a free festival. So I want to know if, when we're having these events and we're encouraging people to take transit, are we doing our part where we at least have fare being checked at these locations? Because again, as someone on this advisory committee, I haven't experienced that.
Okay. Barry Green Jr., was that your forum comment?
Oh, for the
Yeah.
forum.
Yes.
More so, again, about a few times that I've taken the bus, and they're just not being an audible cue of where I am. And just wanted to know if this is something that's been brought up, particularly on the 23. I've been on the 23 a few times, and there just hasn't been an audible cue on the bus.
It can, yeah, well, does it occur mostly on the 23?
Yes.
Okay. Okay,
Yeah,
that's
we can look
helpful,
at that.
so we can look at.
On the CATS app, there's a reported problem.
Right. There is.
Thank you for helping.
That's helpful because it triggers by the system. If I know what route it is, we can kind of dig in to see whether there's just something from a programming standpoint that's not triggering the announcements.
I'm sorry, Nichelle Dunlap Thompson, Mecklenburg County. I tried to just remain quiet. I'm doing the best I can here. My question to you though, Eric, is I know you've been here 5 months. So with all of the conversation, with the public comments from our citizens who actually have hands-on experience with the rides, with the systems, have you had a conversation directly with the community and the commuters since you've been here? Are you?
The short answer to that is no.
I want to help you to improve that. I'll be in touch. I yield.
Okay. With that, we'll move on to our last open forum item. It refers to our MTC special meeting with the MOU, as well as the changes with the upcoming authority that needs to be in place come January 2026. and is triggered by the referendum, the sales tax referendum passing potentially in November. So I'd love to hear more about that and how it pertains specifically to this advisory committee and maybe some of the knowns and the unknowns that we can expect to see developed alongside everything else that's happening.
Yeah, so obviously, so on November 4th, if the transit tax passes, a transit authority will be created to oversee transit in Mecklenburg County. So the MOU that has recently been approved by all of the towns and the county inside of Mecklenburg County, what it does is doesn't change state law. What it really does is establish a timeline by which each of those bodies will make their appointments to the new transit authority, assuming this passes on November 4th. And it does that for one reason. State law requires that if this passes November 4th, that the new transit authority provide to the General Assembly by January 1st of 2026 the results of 5 studies, or maybe it could be called one study with 5 areas, either way, and that is due by January 1st, 2026. And so the MOU sort of establishes the calendar by which all of the appointing bodies will make their appointments so that ultimately the transit authority can be created and at least have a meeting in December of 2025 so that they can convey, according to state law, these study areas, these 5 study areas by January 1st, 2026. And that's really what it's doing. And so it's sort of, it's a timing, right? It's working out the timing, because the only way to meet state law is to have that authority body created and able to convey to the General Assembly these studies. So they have to be created to convey, and that has to be done in December so that the studies can be sent to the General Assembly on January 1st. And that's really what the MOU is doing, is giving everybody a calendar, if you will, for making their appointments. Yeah.
Question.
Oh, I apologize. The MOU does do 2 more things. One, it says that the Mecklenburg County and the city of Charlotte will appoint at least one of their appointments will also be someone who is a regular user of transit, right? One each for each of those, at least, not at most, at least. And then it states that this body, the PTAC, will continue to exist as the authority, as part of the authority structure, right? And so it preserves PTAC for the authority or into the authority should this pass on November 4th. Yeah. And so what it's really saying is, because it is standard, it is best practice to have a citizen advisory group just like this one for all transit agencies. So what it's really saying is PTAC isn't going to dissolve and then be recreated. PTAC will carry forward into the new governance. Yeah, so I apologize. I forgot those, but those are certainly worth remembering, so I won't do that again.
And then the application process, with that, or they'll be starting to solicit.
Yeah, so again, looking at the MOU, it lays out that timeline, but it gives the timeline for when the application process will open and close. And then it gives the timeline by which the applicants will be considered and appointed, if you will. December 12th is the last date for appointments. And I want to say the application period starts September 17th and runs till.
For the city and the county, it runs till October 13th.
Yeah.
The towns are a little bit longer.
I just had a question because there's a piece of this that I don't quite understand, which is these studies. Is this an actual study that needs to be done by the group from the 12th of December to January 1, the study needs to be completed?
So we will be discussing.
Or is staff doing the study? And
We will be discussing the logistics and the difficulties of the calendar at the next MTC. It is, yes, we're working through that because it is a very, very, it's a very challenging schedule that is established in state law. And so, yeah, we're working through that, and that will be something for MTC next week at September 17th meeting. But that is, it's tight. It's a tight deadline. So it's a tight deadline. Yeah. Who knows? Yep.
Okay, if there are no other questions, and with no more business on the agenda, can I please have a motion to adjourn? Is there a second?
Second, Tanya Jameson, Charlotte.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any nays? All right, the meeting is adjourned at 5:27. Thank you.
I wanted to say